It was 1921 when Chanel No. 5 was first created. Enchanting, seductive and magnetic. With the passing of time, it emerges more than ever as a distinctive fragrance which attracts the spirits as well as the senses. Now, more than 80 years on, No. 5 has been audaciously reinvented with Eau Premiere. In this podcast, we hear from Chanel's deputy perfumer, Christopher Sheldrake, as he explains the magic formula which was used to create the original No. 5 and how it's been developed to create the new fragrance.
The idea of the Eau Premiere was to take the formula of No. 5, write down the ingredients and create No. 5 as if we were doing it today.
We'll also hear from Newbie Hans, beauty director at Harper's Bazaar, on what No. 5 and Eau Premiere mean to her.
They make it desirable now to somebody in their 20s as they did to somebody in the 1920s.
I'm in Paris to meet Christopher Sheldrake, Chanel's deputy perfumer. The first thing I want to find out about is the mystery of No. 5 and how it came about in the first place.
It is a very magical fragrance, and it's a mysterious fragrance as well. At the time that it was created in 1921, fragrances were really very complex and complicated, and Gabrielle Chanel at that time specifically wanted a fragrance which was going to be different, which was going to be created for women, and which was going to be abstract. And to underline this, she wanted to major on the fragrance and not on the bottle, and a complete change with the style of the time. She went for a bottle which was incredibly simple, and she went for a number rather than a name. So I think what happened was the fragrance was abstract for the first time, and this abstract fragrance was almost underlined by the simplicity of the bottle and the name, which was a number. The perfumer that Gabrielle Chanel asked to create the fragrance decided to counterbalance the jasmine, which was very rich and natural, with a synthetic molecule. In fact, when I say synthetic molecule, it's not really synthetic because it's found in nature, but they were called aldehydes, but a very particular and new smell at the time because it was a very purified form of an ingredient found in nature. And this ingredient, the aldehydes, gave a very abstract feeling to this fragrance.
What's interesting and something I'd never thought of until you started talking about the fact that it was a number, not a name. Why the No. 5? Was there a numbers 1 to 4 beforehand?
There were, in fact, many different trials that the perfumer Ernest Beau presented to Gabrielle Chanel. Gabrielle Chanel was somebody who, it's interesting, she had, she was very superstitious, and she believed in lucky charms and numbers, and No. 5 was in fact a very lucky number for her. I haven't smelt the other versions, but certainly No. 5, she chose that number, and it's been the mystical, magical fragrance that has remained in history.
Does it make it very complicated to make perfumes using such good ingredients? And is there a temptation to use, lesser quality ingredients to be able to make more perfume, as it were?
At Chanel, the priority is quality. And when I say quality, it's not only in the choice of the ingredients that we use, but it's in all the products that are created and produced by the company.
So what's the relationship then between the original No. 5 and the new Eau Premiere?
They differ enormously, and at the same time they're very similar. If you know No. 5 and you have it in your mind, and you smell Eau Premiere by itself, you'll say that this is No. 5. And in fact, it has all the same elements that No. 5 has always had. If you like, the idea of the Eau Premiere was to take the formula of No. 5, write down the ingredients and create No. 5 as if we were doing it today, with all the technology and the new ingredients that are available today that Ernest Beau didn't have 85 years ago. It's a new interpretation of femininity because today we have ingredients that are available that give us the opportunity of being more feminine, maybe more young.
What ingredients go into it? You've talked so much about the amazing ingredients that you grow and that you harvest through the year. What ingredients go into this? Can you tell us?
I can. I think there's no secret that No. 5 is a wonderful balance of natural ingredients with this rather mysterious aspect of the aldehydes. And whether it's the original fragrance created in 1921 or Eau Premiere created now, it has the same ingredients. So we're talking about ylang, which comes from the Comore Islands, which has a lovely white floral smell. It's like a very fresh, quite a strong jasminic smell, but much more the fresh side. There is also jasmine, which is the rich, sensual part of the fragrance that comes from grass from the south of France. We have the rose, which has this lovely sort of dewy aspect. So these three flowers, then we have the aldehydes, which counterbalance that. We have vanillic notes, slightly powdery vanillic notes, and then the woody vetiver notes, for example. So these are the key ingredients in the No. 5 family. Simply, in the Eau Premiere, we have the opportunity to use molecules that have been found in nature and isolated, if you like, which give us the opportunity to make Eau Premiere much more watery, fresher, lighter, transparent, and feminine and softer, as I said before.
Back in London once again, and I'm here at the Wild at Heart florist at the legendary Liberty store just off Carnaby Street. If you want to talk about amazing products, ingredients and smells, here's the place to be. I'm here to find out what newbie Hans from Harper's Bazaar magazine thinks about Eau Premiere and the original No. 5. So let's go in and have a chat.
Because it was one of the very first perfumes, it does have that going for it, that there was very few, and it was very beautiful, and it's Chanel, and it's Coco Chanel, and it's everything that's gorgeous in 1920s. But I don't think that was enough to keep it going for so long. And I think ultimately, it's just a really good smell. The name, just that No. 5, is so clever, it's so timeless, and it's such an old cliche, and I feel embarrassed saying it, but that bottle is so beautiful. I think it just shows the total brilliance of Coco Chanel and Chanel, the fact they've managed to sort of tweak it over the years and make tiny changes, but it still is so beautiful. And I think that's why it's so big, because it's the ultimate Christmas present of a perfume, and it may be over 80 years old, but there's something about that bottle that is really, really special.
What do you think in general your fragrance says about you?
A really good compliment is, is if another woman comes up to you and just says, whether it's in Tesco's or, someone like here at Liberty's, and they say, God, that's wonderful, what is it? I've stopped people and asked them, and I think that's when it's fabulous, and I think it's fantastic when we don't know what somebody else is wearing.
And now Chanel have launched Eau Premiere.
I think it's a very brave idea. And when I heard they were going to do it, there's very few companies that could do it, and I knew Chanel could do it because they are a genius at keeping all that 1920s Coco Chanel history, and then the 1950s, 60s, and Marilyn Monroe and Catherine Deneuve, and they are a genius company for keeping the history, the heritage, and looking forward to 2009, 2010. So they make it desirable now to somebody in their 20s as they did to somebody in the 1920s. They have totally succeeded, and they had to succeed. You can't do a sort of a lighter, modern version of the world's most famous perfume and fail, and they have totally succeeded. And I think for all those women out there who always wanted to wear No. 5 and just felt it's a bit old for them, this is it's a beautiful perfume. Beautiful.
What do you think makes it beautiful? Is it the slightly lighter, fresher feel to it?
It is. Jack Polsh, who is the nose, who's worked at Chanel for several decades now, and he's a real genius. And he sort of described it as being like a watercolour version of, say, Chanel No. 5 is the oil painting, then this is the watercolour. And I think that so perfectly, having smelt both of them, perfectly describes it. So it's almost, if you love No. 5, this is your hot weather, this is your summer version. If you love the idea of No. 5, but you find it just a bit heavy, then this is the one that makes it more modern. They haven't tweaked it, they've lightened it, they've kept the sort of the juice of it, they've kept the heart of it and the quality and the class of it. But it's just like something you can just spray all over, and it's in a great bottle. The bottle's a little bit taller and slimmer, and it's just sort of, it's a bit like Karl Lagerfeld when he joined the House of Chanel as a designer, the creative director. He took that classic Coco Chanel suit and he just whacked it straight up to date, and it's that cleverness.
More than 80 years after Chanel No. 5 was first created, it's been reinvented with Eau Premiere. Similar, yet different. And as Newbie said, think of it as the watercolour to complement the oil painting.